Hello, everybody. Hi, hi, hi. Hello, hello, hello. I think everything's working. I hope you're all well. Everybody having a good time out there. I might just move my camera just a little bit this way, so I've got a little bit more range of movement in my neck. Good evening, Philip.
Evening all. Evening all.
How are you today? Good evening to you, Mike's Painted Minis. Hello, I should say. Hi, hi. Ahoy, hoy. Hello, Andrew Begg. How are you? Are you good? We're live. It's the Sunday show. We're live here on this channel. Adam is trying to go live on his channel.
Trying to go live, but I've got no sound. So that's gone great. Cheers, computer that's just decided not to work after working perfectly for 2 streams. That's
always the way.
It's fine. We'll get going eventually once I decide what's wrong with this piece of crap.
Yeah, I'm sure we will. Everything will be fine. Everything's fine. Everything's fine.
Everything is fine.
Mr. Gwotkin Gaming is here. Hello, Mr. Gwotkin Gaming. Hope you're well.
Hey, Gwotkin Gaming. How's it going? Hey, Richard.
Just adjust this camera slightly. There we go. You can see the long line of Dire Avengers in front of me. And I've got more Dire Avengers here. These ones are the ones that are being filmed. Well, the X-Arc over there is the one that's being filmed. I'm not sure what I'm going to do tonight. I might do a little bit of highlighting and stuff on some weapons, or I might paint some Tau. Who knows? We are paint. Basically, I've got nothing but meta options in front of me, which is useful because we're going to be talking about the meta tonight. To be interested to get everybody's thoughts and feelings. Good evening, Ross. I hope you are very well and you're having a lovely evening, a lovely Sunday evening. Yes, we are talking 40k meta. We're doing a check-in of where we're at. And then I'm going to convince Adam that Age of Sigmar is a better game. And that he should be committing all of his considerable brain power and resources to mastering Age of Sigmar. Because
in the words of old Anakin Skywalker, you may try.
Yeah, we'll get to it later. How many Dire Avengers do you have to do in total? I have 30 to do in total. 5 left. There's these 4, and there's an X-Arc over there. So I've done 25. I've got to do the bases. Actually, that's not a bad idea. I could do the bases tonight on the 25 on the 15. That's a good idea. That would be something to do. Rachel's here, and she says she loves Dire Avengers. Good for you. I'm so glad.
Bloody love them.
I'm so glad. I hate them with the passion of a burning sun. No, I'm joking.
You love them. What are you talking about? You absolutely love them.
I do a little bit. Do you know what? When I started an Eldar army a long time ago, back when I was at university, so a decade ago, I had 30 Dire Avengers then. I sold them because I stopped doing Eldar, but I had 30 Dire Avengers back then because I just really liked them. I liked what Bladestorm used to do back in 5th, 6th ed. It was really fun.
Oh yeah.
I recall. I can't remember exactly what it did, but it was good. Well,
I mean, they have Bladestorm. They have Bladestorm now. It's just, quite different.
They also share it with Guardians, and it's not something that they put into their own datasheet. That's horrible. But that doesn't mean they're not horrible, because most of the Eldar book is horrible. And one of the things that I think we're going to try and myth bust tonight is that I think people are doing what they did with the Custodes book, and they're really down on it at the minute. And
oh my god, yeah, definitely. I've got a whole realm of stories on people being down on books that I will get into at some point during the stream. Don't worry.
Yeah. No, so it's a funny one because it's like, this book is horrid. This book is horrid, Even just like certain components of it. I think one of the things that, again, like with the Custodes book, I think when people were like, oh, it's really bad because it doesn't have the 3+ invulnerable save, this, that, and the other. There's also, like, in the Custodes book, it wasn't immediately obvious what unit you could spam 3 of to the max and still have an effective army.
Yeah.
Like, even now, if you try and do that, you can't really do that with the Custodes because the points are just oppressive. Like, even if you take 6, 12, 18 Virtus Praetors, you're not doing anything else in the game. And it's actually, whilst that is horrible, it's actually not that hard to beat 18 Virtus Praetors. Which is why you're seeing 2 units of 3, possibly 2 of 6, but mostly 2 of 3, right? That's usually what you're seeing.
Yeah.
Same with the Aeldari. There isn't really a way in this book where you can take 30 fire dragons.
Yeah.
It's not pushing you towards doing that. It's pushing you towards doing combined arms. And oh boy, this book is very, very good. Just even, I mean, it's, points-wise, it's expensive, right? But yeah, I mean, the book does shake up the meta quite considerably. I don't know if it completely dethrones Tau and Custodes. Mr. Gwatkin says, tell that to Manny with 3x3 bikes and 3x dreads. Well, again, that's not 3x6, which would be really oppressive. Joking, not joking. Hashtag. Thank you, Rachel. I've still got my old pewtered Dire Avengers in the attic somewhere. Lovely, Ross. Ooh. See, the only ones I ever had were plastic, unfortunately. But yes, that is what we will be discussing. Are you nearly done with your technical difficulties?
I am nearly done with my technical difficulties. I am getting very close to resolving them. I just need to reset up my stream and then I will be good to go. So I'm going to try and do that shortly now.
I'm definitely showing off my powers of improvisation right now. Not that we have an agenda. We never have an agenda for these. Well, we have an agenda, but not an agenda.
Yeah. This is like Fox News. We're all fair and balanced here.
Well,
like the game of Warhammer, we are very fair and balanced.
Not unless it comes to Land Raiders, then we're not fair and balanced at all. Well, one of us isn't. No, actually, both of us aren't. I have a very optimistic view of Land Raiders, and Adam hates Land Raiders.
I don't hate them. I don't. Hang on. Whoa. This is slander, right? I'm being misrepresented here. I think Land Raiders are cool. I just don't think they should be 100 points.
But what can you base that argument on?
What? Nothing. Just my own ridiculous opinions, probably.
And I can base my argument on them being 100 points on a myriad of different factors that I'm not going to show you.
Yeah. Oh, right. Yeah. You've not got any evidence or fact or anything else for this, of course. No.
Actually, I do. If a devilfish can be 90 points, why can't a Land Raider be 100 points?
I can think of several reasons. Although I say that devilfish should not be 90 points either. But that's a whole other level of debate.
You know, if you can get 3, right? Okay, so here's one of my reasonings. Okay, so the chickens from the AdMech, right? Mm-hmm. The ones with the two with the twin las cannon, right? How many points are they? Do you know?
So they were like 65 or something stupid like that. Then they put 10 points. Then the lads. Oh no, there was 65 points base, 10 points for the lads cannon, so 75. I think now they have gone up to like 85, 95. So they have got about 20 points more expensive overall. They also lost the core keyword, which was a big change too, because they were core.
Okay.
For reasons.
So if we go 85 points for a chicken, right?
Mm-hmm.
That means 2 of them is 170 points. Is that correct?
Yeah.
You now have the same amount of las cannons as a Land Raider. A Land Raider is 265 points.
Okay, gotcha.
Okay. So you can actually take 6 las cannons for the price of 4 las cannons on one Land Raider.
Okay, all right. I mean,
I'm just saying.
I have very.
I'm just saying. Now, if we
What is
look,
the time?
if we look within the Space Marine book itself, right?
Yeah.
You take a unit of Devastators,
Mm-hmm.
each with a las cannon. 4 las cannons in the Devastator squad. For some reason, it's still cheaper than the Land Raider.
Right. Okay.
I'm basing this purely on offensive output. I do appreciate that, because you know, there's other factors at play. But I think the laser chickens and Land Raider
Are comparable. That's your.
are somewhat comparable.
That's your argument. Okay. All right. I mean, I think there are reasons to disagree, but what do
Because
I
some
know,
people would
mate?
tell me that, well, the Land Raider has carrying capacity. Now, admittedly, the Land Raider can carry, 5 to 10 miniatures, depending on the size of it. But the laser chickens, they can carry 1 miniature each as well, which is the guy riding it.
Okay. Okay.
And he's the one doing the firing. He can also have a gun, can't he? You can give him
also have a gun.
You can give
Yeah.
him a rad carbine or whatever it was. I'm just saying. So the laser chickens crew, they can interact with the game. Land Raider crew can't.
Okay. All right. I'm not gonna argue with this. I think this is a difficult argument to get into, so I will leave it. Okay, I should be able to go live in 1 minute. Not that anyone on your channel's gonna care, but
They will care.
I care.
They care. Emily is here. Evening, gentlemen. Hope you're both keeping well. Hope everyone in chat is keeping well as well. We are all keeping well, I am sure. I hope you are keeping well yourself. What would be the better addition to Land Raiders? Demonic mutations or Tyrannid limbs? Tyrannid limbs, because presumably the Land Raiders just ran straight over it, and Land Raiders are invincible. Good evening, Mr. Hipster and Mr. ADR. How art thou, fair gents? I'm very well, thank you, Jonathan De Silva, formerly known as Bolt Rifles. I hope you are well, my friend. Haven't spoken to you in a
man, how
while.
you doing? Yeah, definitely. It's been a while, hasn't it?
Mike's Painted
Right,
Minis
here we go.
says, damn laser chickens. So, yeah, he agrees. I'm just assuming. I'm assuming anyone that's still watching right now agrees with me that Land Raiders are the best. Mr. Dowleza says, good evening, both Warhipster. I hope life is feeling a little less crazy. It's not. It's getting more and more crazy as time goes by. I haven't kind of revealed a lot about what's going on. There's just a number of things that are incredibly stressful right now in terms of keeping Warhipster going, which is hard. It's all kind of technology type.
Hey, I'm
stuff.
live. There we go.
And
Hello, internet. Hello, everyone.
Mr. 5 Minute 40k is live as well. Hooray!
At last, I've resolved my technical issues.
You resolved
The
yours.
first part of my stream is just me staring at the screen. It's quite amusing.
It's right. You can edit that out in post. It's all good. But
I'm gonna have to.
But yeah, no, I was just there's a number of kind of struggles that are happening at this end in Warhipster Towers that are making it quite difficult to stay as productive as I normally am. It's just taking up a lot of time. It's stuff like this mouse is broken. So it just starts losing sensitivity right in the middle of editing, so it's just creating editing problems.
Sucks.
My hard drive is just constantly full, so I'm constantly having to edit clip by clip, delete by delete, and that and the other. I can't readily create stuff very easily. I can't edit stuff in like 4K, for example, which is something that I would desperately love to do. I just don't have the computing power to do it. These streams, for example, there's stuff I really want to do that, like for example, puts the how you can see like widgets and stuff where you put the chat on the screen, for example, that type of thing. The computer I've tried it. It just dies. It just goes, no, it can't handle it. It just drops. Like I did a test private stream the other day with a couple of really cool features that I wanted to have, and of the sort of 50,000 frames that I streamed, 2% actually came through. So I was trying to go at 40, and I was even trying to stream at 30 FPS, which at this point is awful.
Oof.
In this own life.
Fair enough. Oh, Mr. Quatkin Gaming, don't tell me you can't hear Josh on my stream. Don't tell me I've got more audio problems. Oh.
Did you say there was a question to the continuance of Warhipster? What do you need and where can I send it, Jonathan? It's very kind of you, mate. I'm gearing up towards figuring out exactly what it is that I need, and then figuring out how it is that I can get hold of that. And trust me, everybody will be the first to know once I figure that out. There's a couple of things I'm sort of kind of fundraising type things that I'm bouncing around as ideas, to try and you know, do something awesome for you guys and do something awesome for Warhipster as well. Don't worry, Jonathan. You will be the first to know. I promise. Everyone will know as soon as I can kind of figure out exactly what it is I need to do to keep everything a hot tub fundraiser, says Alex. Yeah, that's one of them. That's one of the ideas. Although it would admittedly be a cold bucket of water with my foot in it. Trying to paint while shivering. It's kind of like trying to paint whilst in an earthquake. Yeah. Hello, you sexy beasts. Great to be here. To be here, great, says Mr. Biltong Boob. Hello, Mr.
Hey,
Boob.
Mr. Biltong. Hey, Mr. Boob.
I hope you're well. I hope you're all good. So, I need to grab something from over there. I need to grab two things from over there, from the stock. I need to grab Sterling Battlemire and a pot of dirt. So I will be 2 seconds.
A pot of dirt. We love a good pot of dirt. Okay, cool. Well, I'll keep the troops entertained. So let me know. Is there anything you want to know in the comments? Obviously, I can see Josh's chat. Just let me know. Is there anything you'd like us to talk about tonight, apart from the general topics of what is going on in 40k at the moment, and also AOS as well, which I know nothing about. So, Gotkin Gaming, I have just asked you a question on my stream. Let me know if you can hear Josh now, because I think I hopefully have sorted that out, but we'll see.
Ahoy! I appear to have miscalculated and thought that I only need to get two things, but in fact I needed to get a third thing.
Oh, you've got to get a third thing?
Yes.
So Miss Boob says, love this month's Telemini Warhipsters. I'm glad you did. It was very fun. Have I thought of starting the AOS train, Adam? I have thought about starting AOS. The issue I have is that I have too much Warhammer, which is probably not a thing. I certainly have too much for the space that I have. So I would like to get into AOS properly, and I do have the Dominion starter set. But eventually I will, get into it, but not for a little while. I think at the moment, I'm afraid.
He's got to win a 40k GT major before he'll.
Yeah, I set myself, I set myself small goals to I need to win a GT apparently first. But yeah, no, that's the plan. And as Dave Hall rightly says, my view on AOS at the moment is the wagons.
The wagons.
So the wagons.
Dave is here.
Wagging these models across the table.
Liam says AOS is king, and I agree with you, Liam. Do you know what? Okay, what do you want to do first? Do you want to do 40k meta, or do you want to do a quick Age of Sigmar check-in? Because there's something I've been meaning to say.
We can probably do. Well, we can probably do check-in on the AOS front as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, so right, hang on. I'll tell you why. I'll tell you what I've been thinking.
Yep.
I've been thinking that Age of Sigmar, as a game, playing it, practicing it, learning the rules.
Yeah.
If you view it as a way to get better at playing 40k, you are in the money, sir.
I think it's not a bad way to do it.
Because the game itself, the changes in it, the changes in it are more tactical because of the nature of the game.
Yep.
if you apply the logic of the decisions that you make in Age of Sigmar to your 40k games, you will become a better player of Warhammer 40,000. So one of the things I will point to is the fact that you have the double turn in Age of Sigmar. And the other thing I will point to as my first point is the combat phase itself.
Right.
So, the double turn in Age of Sigmar, it's controversial. It would not work in 40k. It definitely would not work in 40k. If you think facing something like Tau right now is egregious, imagine having to face 2 turns of that firepower in a row. It just wouldn't work.
Yeah.
It just didn't work. The game gets a little bit skewed in terms of the double turn when you play games that are very ranged heavy in Age of Sigmar. It is a bit of a problem, but some of those builds can be sort of helped by, I think if Age of Sigmar was to put in a little bit more mandatory terrain like 40k's stuff does now, that would kind of fix quite a few of those problems. Anyway, the reason why the double turn, playing some games where you might get a double turn on you, forces you to be more critically aware of your own assets and overreaching. And this is what a number of people struggle with in terms of getting better at 40k, is they overreach, they overcommit, they don't know what to do with their assets. You have that knockout punch that you want to use immediately, and you try and smash it out turn 1. Forces you to be...
Hey, there we go. I've got you coming through my YouTube now. Sorry, that's why you heard yourself in double there.
Oh, excellent. So, yeah, because like in Age of Sigmar, if you go right, I'm going to push my entire army forwards, and then you like look across the table and your opponent's playing like a really fast-moving cavalry army, and you know that like you could, if you assume that priority is going to go the way is going to go the same way the next turn, and that you're going to be one who gets to dictate the charges, you are then somewhat boned when the double turn inevitably happens to you, and your opponent basically moves, shoots, and combats you once, but like they move twice, right? So this is one of those important things that I think is very, very, very cool about Age of Sigmar, is you learn very quickly how to deploy your assets across the game, at least turns 1 to 3.
Yeah.
And it makes you a better 40k player, because as 40k players, particularly at competitive standard, you talk a lot about and you and I have talked about this at length in terms of building lists of like, what is the purpose of everything in the list, right? Sometimes you look at a matchup that you're going to play. So, for example, with your Crusher Stampede, right? And I know that you, at ITT, you did a very good job of this, right? Where you played on the heavy table.
Yep.
You had to manage your assets properly there, right?
Yeah, so I had a game, just for a bit of background for people who don't know. So I played a game at the International Team Tournament with my Crusher Stampede, which obviously is big beasties, many of which you can actually see behind me on the shelves here, that have massive bases. And the guy I was playing completely understandably said, oh, I want to play on the heavy table. Now, the way, for people who've not been to a team tournament before, I understand this is the same at all team tournaments. This was my first one of these, so Josh was very much in charge of working out what we did in terms of picking tables and sort of picking opponents. But
yeah, apart from when you all went rogue.
Yeah, except for the one time we went rogue and then it didn't work out. We had Sandman had a strategy, and it was a good strategy, but they called us on it. They called our bluff, and it got us. But no,
like, let's do it this way. No, let's bluff them. They called the bluff. Oh, we lost the round.
They called the bluff. Yeah. Well, yeah, controversy on that one. But anyway, the way that the table sort of setting works is you take 2 pieces of the medium-sized L-shaped stuff that you get on your like grand tournament type tables, and you put 2 of them from one table on another table, thus creating a light table, i.e. a table with very, very little terrain relatively, and a heavy table with lots of terrain. So my opponent picked a heavy table against me, which was understandable because he kind of wanted to control the movement, and he basically deployed the terrain such that, I couldn't get my Barbed Hyrule or my Scythe Hyrule, which are the big beasties on big bases, into the other half of the table. I just couldn't do it. I couldn't physically move them around the terrain. And obviously they're, giant monsters. They can't go through the terrain like Infantry Beast or Swarm. So that was I was like, oh, that's kind of stuff me
Interestingly,
there. I then won the game.
Interestingly, yeah. I think that was. I think we've played that was played a number of different ways, but I think the official way to do that was that you two, as the players on the heavy table, would place one piece each. Not the person who chose the table would place both.
Well, in a wonderful example of TOing, because to be fair, my opponent was a lovely guy. Like, I had no criticism of him whatsoever, because he was like, oh, I think this is the way I do it. And I said, oh, can we check? And he said, oh, yeah. And we got the judge over, and the judge came over and said, oh, yeah, no, that's fine. You can do that. And I was a bit like, huh, okay, interesting. But yeah, it's the way it ended up working. And
you won the game so anyway, so.
Yeah, I can't complain, yeah.
So yeah, you did a really good job in that game of being able to manage your assets, because you weren't able to play in a way that you normally do, right? Because you had to go down very particular line of sight, right? So this is why if in that one you were definitely in that scenario, right? But I would almost guarantee that when you were playing with your sisters, there were a number of times where you were playing games that could have been won if you had managed your assets better.
Oh, definitely. I think the thing is, people in 40k, people in any tabletop wargaming, but people in 40k especially, get very concerned about killiness. I just need to go and kill stuff. And actually, managing your assets to play the objectives is the key to winning games.
Yes.
And it doesn't matter if all your stuff gets wiped out at the end of the day. Who gives a crap if you've got enough points that you have won the game? And obviously, again, that's a very difficult balance to have. But there are quite a few armies that will quite happily sit there and go, do you know what? I know that at the end of the game, I am not going to have any models alive.
Yeah.
But I don't care, because I'm going to win on points, right?
Yeah. So this is where my point of, one of the things that I really appreciated about learning Age of Sigmar was, in 40k, let's say you've got two combat armies, right? Facing each other. And let's just say, for example, that you've got a mirror match of Blood Angels fighting each other, right? You know that your opponent's Death Company might do Forlorn Fury at the beginning of the game. They then move 12 inches, and then they can charge, right?
Oh, I like the way you said charge there. That was quite sexy. You should record that. Charge.
So you know that, right? So when you're facing something like Blood Angels, you're looking at that as a possibility. So what you do is you pre-measure that, and you go, right, so if they're going to go there, and that's the threat range. So I need to deploy the thing that it wants to kill this far back, so it can't be charged in turn 1, right? That is what a lot of people instinctively do.
Yes, definitely.
So imagine in Age of Sigmar, then you have the exact same thing, where you have to think about, well, if I go first, I might then go third. If I go second, I might then go third. Yeah. So imagine trying to balance that. And that is what gives you that 2 steps ahead. That can help you really train up the 2 steps ahead. The other part of it that I would like to bring up in this first iteration of why Age of Sigmar is better, but not really, but it is the combat phase. Now, in 40k, as we know, what it's supposed to be is the combat phase, as a combat army, for example, it's supposed to be that all of your units charge, and all of your charging units go first, apart from if your opponent interrupts. Then it gets more complicated, because you also have fights first and fights last, but fundamentally at its core, it's charging units all go first, and then it's, your opponent's turn to hit back. In Age of Sigmar, that is not the case. Everything goes my turn, your turn, my turn, your turn in the combat phase, and as it's my turn, I get to elect what fights first, right?
Yeah.
And I get 1 activation. So what this teaches you in Age of Sigmar is how many things to charge, and how many things, and how to set up the next charge onwards. Which in 40k I know some people do, but that's like next level combat army type thing. So like you know that if you put the if you put the Keeper of Secrets into the Canoptek Wraiths with the 3+ invulnerable save, because what you want it to do is actually hit the Necron Overlord behind, it's not going to get through the 3+ invulnerables Canoptek Wraiths. So you don't do that. What you do is you put something else.
That would be a bad idea.
Yeah. You go.
Canoptek Wraiths are a 4-up now, though. I will say that. I think they're a 4-up rather than 3-up.
Yes,
but your example is still correct. I'm just being a pedant.
No, that is true. But like, so that's the point. In Age of Sigmar, right? What you have to do is if I've got 10 units, right, and I charge them into your 10 units, only one of my things is hitting first. So I have to absolutely know which one of it. And again, in 40k, generally, you have to plan for 1 interrupt, unless you're playing Custodians, in which case you have to plan for 2 interrupts. But it's how many things are you charging? So again, it's asset management. It's what are you doing with your units? Like being basically is showing moderation when you need to show moderation. If you know your opponent's only got 2 CP, well, they're probably going to interrupt, right? But they might have something else, so you don't know. They might not interrupt. They might believe it's going to survive. Age of Sigmar, of course, that goes all out the window, because it's like, well, I could charge if I was to, for example, demonstrate this in terms of Custodes, for example. Imagine that I did have those 3 units of bikes, and I was playing in Age of Sigmar, and I charged all 3 units of bikes. I know that only 2 of my units of bikes are going to strike before 3 of my opponents are going to strike back at, and what they're going to do is they're going to strike at the stuff that hasn't fought yet, obviously. And because in Age of Sigmar stuff dies a lot quicker, you absolutely have to plan for it. So when I'm playing games of 40k, I am considering that pretty much any time something interacts with one of my units, it's probably going to die. Now, admittedly, I'm playing demons, right? So it's very hard to not kill demons because, 5-up invulnerable save most of the time. But, I am basically operating under the understanding that it's probably it's not going to be long for this world. So, that's
a fair assumption.
Yeah, and that's because, traditionally, something like a Liberator in the Stormcast range, it's not now, but it used to be a 4+ save.
Yeah.
If you charged it into anything with Rend, that put it on a 5+, right? And then you're just like, well, this is just fundamentally harder to keep these guys alive, because there's no invulnerable saves or anything like that, right?
Yeah.
So, well,
absolutely.
There is now, but they're not prevalent all over the place. So, it's one of those things of those 2 types of thing in Age of Sigmar itself. They really teach you how to manage your army and to think the second step ahead, because that's how the good players of 40k are good players. They're not thinking about turn 1, they're thinking about turn 3, where they want to be for turn 3.
Definitely.
And that's what Age of Sigmar teaches you.
Yeah, I think so, and I think it's obviously, again, I can't speak to Age of Sigmar because I haven't played a game of it, right? But I think thinking about, as you say, thinking a turn ahead at least about where you want to be, and also thinking about what you need to do for your secondaries and your and that kind of feeds into it, right? But thinking about what you need to do for your secondaries and your primaries, and obviously bear in mind now in 9th, in 40k we have your primary and then your secondary primary, right? In the sense that every mission has hold 1, hold 2, hold more, or hold 2, hold 3, hold more objectives for 4, 8, or 12 points. And then we also have a sort of secondary primary, right? And some of those are really funky. There's the one where you can place the bombs, right? So there's one of them where you can do an action with I think it's with any unit actually. It's not sort of limited to infantry and stuff. To place a bomb in the opponent's half of the board, or the opponent's territory, right? And if they are a troops unit, the sort of action to do it is completed at the end of your turn. If they're not a troops unit, the action is completed, I think, at the beginning of your next command phase. So obviously if they kill the unit that's doing it, you don't place the bomb.
Yeah.
But let's assume that they're a troop unit. They place the bomb. The opponent can then do an action to, like, defuse the bomb, right? But obviously has to dedicate a unit to do that. And at the end of the game, you score all these as like another bit to your primary because they detonate and they go off, I think, for 2 points if they're just in your opponent's territory. I think it's 4 points if they're in your opponent's deployment zone. So again, you need to be thinking a lot more ahead and a lot more creatively about how you're going to get your objectives, rather than just going, I'm going to run at that and I'm going to kill it and that's it. Because as you say as well, with combat, you'll bounce. Like a lot of the time, you will just bounce.
So here's the other thing, right, about that. And here's why I think Age of Sigmar is better.
Okay.
It's one of the many reasons, having played the game very recently. In terms of the game itself, not only is the game mechanics, the basic core rules, I think, make for a much more kind of tactical game once you kind of get your head around the basics of it. I think that the competitive way of playing Age of Sigmar is better than 40k. I think it's much more flowing. I think it's much more narratively focused in a certain way. So, and what I mean by this is the way that you do things like secondaries. So there are secondaries in Age of Sigmar. They're called battle tactics. I think that's the right thing. And you also have a grand strategy. Your grand strategy is one thing that you pick that is going to be your end of game sort of bonus points. So in the Stormcast book, for example, I'm going to get one of them in the Stormcast book, for example. One of the grand strategies is, I can't remember its name, but it's you will win this one if the only characters left alive on the battlefield are dragons.
Dragons.
Yeah.
Sorry, it gave me the excuse to say dragon.
Yeah. No, so it's like if you basically what that entails is you will be successful if you killed all of your enemy's characters and none of your infantry characters are still alive, but only the dragons are still alive. You will score that one, right? It's just that's it. Okay. That's one grand strategy, right? It's not a great one, but it's just one I can think of off the top of my head. But the other thing that you have is you have the battle tactics, and you pick that secondary every single turn, and you cannot pick the same one more than once. And if you fail to do it, you lose it. So imagine in 40k, every turn you picked a battle tactic. So in turn 1, you go, I'm going to do retrieve Nachman data. If you fail to do retrieve Nachman data, that's it. You don't score the point. And in turn 2, you can't then retrieve Nachman data.
You have to pick a different one. Yeah, okay. It's an interesting way of looking at it.
So remember the battle tactics. I'll see if I can find them. But like, so the battle tactics, for example, in AOS, some of them they're quite easy. On the face of it, they seem quite easy. But there are ones that you definitely don't do at times, depending on your army, right? So you can build your army to fulfill these, but remember, you're only scoring it once, and if you don't score it, you're an idiot.
Sure.
Let me see if I
was going to say, well, while you're looking at that, I think just a couple of points in the chat. So just in your chat, Rich Watkins says Middle-earth is actually really well designed, just by comparison, Middle-earth strategy battle games, or battle games in Middle-earth, whatever it's called now. Really well designed, where both players share a single turn, roll off a priority to see who gets to act first, but you can interrupt with heroes. I think that's quite cool. That's quite an interesting design, rather than maybe the swingy either way of, 40k is just I go, you go, I go, you go, I go, you go. Or AOS, where at least in theory I can be like, I get a turn, and I get another turn, right? So that's an interesting middle ground. And ML in my chat says, do you think that doing all this, and I think he's talking about the sort of secondaries I was talking about for 40k, is too much though? That the game is too complicated unless you're one of those really high level players that are a minority of the hobby? I don't disagree with that. So I just before we go on to the point about the AOS tactics that you were talking about, Josh, what I will say is I think 9th is actually a really good game. Like in design, in principle, I think they are doing it is like an improvement on 8th, and I actually think the changes to have more nuance in the primaries and more nuance in the secondaries is actually better, because it stops some of the stuff we saw in early 9th, where you just end up with these kind of like spam armies. And people taking units. I mean, I'm partly sad about it. I'm going to be a bit of a hypocrite here. I'm partly sad about it because they killed my Lictor, my Tyranid Lictor. He was the greatest, worst model in the universe, because he had one purpose, which was that he did secondaries really well. He's crap apart from that, till we get the new codex anyway. And they stopped me using him because, you now have to have, to get retrieve Nachmund data, you now have to sort of roll a dice and you have to get a result, what is it, a result lower than your unit count, or your model count in the unit doing it, in order for it to go off successfully. So obviously a 1-man unit always fails. You have to have probably a 6-man unit really to make sure you're going to get it to go off. So I like those changes. What I would say though is I agree, 40k is very complicated, right? Yeah. The basic game itself I don't think is complicated, as in movement phase, movement phase, psychic phase, shooting, charge, combat, morale. You can actually learn those fairly basically. But the competitive side of the game is definitely a little bit complicated. 100% agree. What I would say, ML, is you don't have to play match play, right? And that's not to say you shouldn't. I think you should. I think it's a good system. And if you want to play at tournaments and stuff like that, obviously it's the way to go. But in your casual, like, beer and pretzels, games that you play, just play however you want, right? Yeah. If you don't want to do, you have to pick 3 secondaries, just say pick 1 or don't pick any. Yeah. You don't have to. You don't even have to do primaries. You can do a completely narrative game. I mean, I've seen a lot of YouTubers making content with the what are they called? They're like the cards that give you twists and things like that. I can't remember what the name of those is. Somebody in chat tell me. The open war cards. Yeah. So I want to get a set of those, because the open war cards, I think, are a really good way of playing a good, fun kind of, casual game, because they give you objectives to do. They give you twists that change the game, that mean, there's like fog, so you can't shoot more than 12 inches. So, I bought an entirely really good shooting army. Pfft, good luck. Now you're going to have to kind of work around that, makes you play a bit more creatively. So, honestly, do 40k your way. I'm a massive, massive believer in never, ever, ever sit there and think, oh god, this looks horribly complicated, I don't want to do it. I mean, obviously, if you don't want to do it, that's your call as well. But play it your way. Just do what you want, right? You don't have to follow what anybody else does. So,
Chris and Rich,
it's your way. And
Chris and Rich are waxing lyrical about Middle-earth strategy battle games, because it is a brilliant game. It is fantastic, and it hasn't, as you're right, Rich, it hasn't changed in 20 years. So it shows how well it was designed. Mikey's Wargaming has just come back from the Twisted Dice tournament. How did you do, Mikey? Did you win?
Yeah, let us know how you did.
Liam reminds me that it's actually called Draconith Defiance, that one I was talking about before.
Oh, the one you were talking about. Yeah.
I've got the battle tactics here. Now, this is the...
Okay, hit me with some battle tactics.
So, Rich is, interestingly enough, saying, I've got some missions designed, potentially for fun and fluff, where you choose an objective for your army in your command phase, i.e. actually using your command phase to command your army. And this is what this game does! So, in your hero phase, you must pick one battle tactic from the list below. You must reveal your choice to your opponent, and if your battle tactic instructs you to pick something, you must tell your opponent what you pick. You have until the end of that turn to complete the battle tactic. You cannot pick the same battle tactic more than once per battle. Now, you score 2 victory points if you complete your battle tactic. Now, I'll give you a couple of these, because they're cool. Break their spirit.
Okay.
Pick one enemy unit wholly within your opponent's territory. You complete this tactic if that unit is destroyed during this turn. Broken ranks. Pick one unit from your opponent's starting army that is on the battlefield. You can complete this tactic if that unit is destroyed during this turn. Conquer. Pick one objective marker on the battlefield that your opponent controls. You complete this tactic if you control that objective marker at the end of this turn. You see what I mean? It gives you an objective to do in the turn. I think this makes the game so much more simpler, because you're not having to do progressive scoring, and progressive scoring is good. I'm not knocking it. I do like progressive scoring, but things like having to keep track of how many Nachmund datas you've done, it should just be a one and done, and it should be harder to do, but it should be like, pick an objective in the center of the battlefield, or that is not in yours or your opponent's territory. This turn, you score a point if you get a unit on there and you perform the action. And that's it. You score the point, and then it's one and done, and you're done.
I also think there's something to be said, just thinking through that idea of, I pick almost a secondary every turn. I do think there's something to be said for the idea that then allows more adaptation for armies.
Yes.
Because obviously, if you go, and I'm gonna point to Mikey's Wargaming's comment in your chat here, Josh, because he says he won 3. This is the Twisted Dice tournament. Won 3 and lost 3, but Drazar got best painted character, so well done, Mikey. Which I'm pleased about, and got Tau twice, which hurt. And I'm picking on the Tau thing here because if you go up against something like Tau that can be quite oppressive, and they just knock half your army off the table turn 1, arguably have you lost the game? Probably, right? Let's be fair. But the fact that you've then got 3 secondaries that you've picked and you've gone, well, I'm now not going to get any of these. Cool, yeah. Right? Whereas at least if it's adapting by turn, there might still be something you can do in a given turn, even when you've lost a lot of your units, which I think then gives you more of a chance to stay in the game, right? Because it is, at the end of the day, about points.
Yeah.
Just to go to my chat as well, ML, I think, makes a very good point. Says he loves how Ninth plays, but complexity doesn't make a game more strategic. Think chess or checkers. I do love the advice. I can play how I want. I've started to play that with my friends. Yeah, I agree. Complexity doesn't make things more strategic. 100%. And overly complex. It makes me laugh, right? Because we always talk about 40k, especially, and people talk about like 7th edition and how mental that got when you had all the complexity of basically all the other editions before just piled on top of each other with pie plates and blast markers and scatter dice and armor facings and all this, that, and the other, right? And it just got a bit crazy. And then the big change was when they went to 8th and they just went, no, we're getting rid of it. And there were a lot of people that turned around, and sorry, this is to another comment from El where he says, do we, and Josh, I'll let you answer this, do we like the complexity? We want it more complex or less? A lot of people, when 8th happened, complained and said, oh, this is not as interesting because it's not as complex. And I disagree with that. I do like a level of simplicity because at the end of the day, it's a tabletop war game. We can't represent every single little thing that would happen if we're trying to pretend it's, air quotes, real, right? With armor facings and, the back of a tank being weaker than the front of a tank and stuff like that. It all gets a bit too difficult to do, and there's a lot of admin already. And, even in 9th, as I say, they've built on 8, so they've taken the simple version of 40k and built on it. And even we're sitting here going, is this getting a bit too complicated?
Yeah. So,
and it's a fair question. It is a fair question to ask, and it is, maybe it is getting a bit too complicated. I wouldn't want to see more complexity.
No, I don't want to see more complexity.
I would say that.
What I want to see is, I guess, it's a different kind of complexity. I think what I want is because the game is sort of complex and also sort of not. Like, it's a case of if you're going to play at a competitive level, right? If you're going to go to a tournament, you're going to 9 times out of 10. If you're really serious about it as well, you're going to build your list in a certain way that is going to 1, counter strong meta, 2, it's going to score a certain way, and you are going to stick to that plan religiously. So at that point, you all of the complexity is in the list building, right? At that point, and that's how I feel like 9th edition is at the moment. And it's a symptom of playing ITC.
Yeah,
because ITC is definitely like every game of ITC I ever played. Every time I ever went to a tournament, people would look at my list and they would say, "You give up the Reaper."
Yeah,
and I would be like, "Okay, I don't care." It's like, "Yeah, but is there a way that you can not give up the Reaper?" Or like when someone said to me, "Your list gives up Gangbusters too easily. Can you build it so that you don't give up Gangbusters?" And I'm like, well, yeah, I can, but why? I'm not building my army to, deny my opponent's scoring. I'm building my army to score points myself. And I always changed my objectives pretty much all of the time, every game. I never kind of took the same ones. In 9th edition, though, I feel like I'm pretty much keyed into taking the same ones each time. So actually, the army as it stands, the one I took to ITT, that's probably the most complex way I've ever thought about building an army, and it's designed to score and also deny score. And I'm like, I don't want this. I don't want this in my game. I don't want this in my tabletop game. What I like is, like I said with the Age of Sigmar thing, and like was what Rich is saying there, like using the command phase to actually command your army. I think that simplifies it in a certain way, because it simplifies the list building aspect of it, and it makes the game more. You're less reliant on second guessing what your opponent does before you've even gone to the event. You know what I mean? And that's why I think like the game can something like, you know, you can look at your army and go, oh well, you know, I am going to give up this if I take that, and if I build it that way, then people are going to be able to score that really easily on me, and this, that, and the other. And we're all talking like super cerebral thinking about when you're going to something like a tournament. When you're playing match play, who cares? You know, if you're just playing a beer and pretzels, like no one, you know, just do whatever.
Bring
like,
Land Raiders. No one serious would do that, you know.
Bring Land Raiders, exactly. Codexes make the game complicated. Codexes do make the game complicated.
Yeah, I wanted to pick up on this comment because I agree Mikey's Wargaming Codexes make the game complicated, and actually I wanted to kind of draw this out, right? Because I think there's a distinction to be had here, right? Because at the moment, what we've been talking about thus far, vis-a-vis 40k, is complexity when it comes to, for want of a better word, this, right? This stuff, you know, your secondaries, and also, I'm not going to go and get the rule book because it's chunky and it's over there, but the core rules. I think those should be relatively simple, as much as they can.
Absolutely.
Where I am okay, and this goes perhaps to ML's question in my stream, where I'm okay with complexity, and I'm going to couch this carefully because I'm not saying I want too many. I mean, people are, you know, saying in the chat about Admech and Tau get too many buffs in like the command phase. I don't think that's good, and I think there's a problem with like layering stuff on armies that can be an issue. However, if we want narratively themed armies, sorry, I sort of tripped over my words there, it's gonna have to be a little bit complicated. By which I mean, right, if we want armies to have some kind of fun thematic ability about them and be different from one another, we are going to have to accept a level of complexity in how that then works, to do with like keywords, to do with abilities that go off on certain units. Where I think things go too far is what you know, Mikey said. Like, I thought Admech are a classic example of, which is the fact that the Admech command phase is ludicrously complicated is a bit ridiculous, right? I've no problem with the Admech getting interesting rules and interesting like buffs, you know, like their ability to broadcast rerolls. Oh, and things fall out of my head is gonna have to head off. But
no worries, Ross. Thanks.
See you later, mate. Have a good evening. And kind of having lots of interesting abilities, but it's probably a bit too over the top in terms of like being able to stack stuff on individual units to power them up, and that's kind of bad. And the fact that that is very hard to then explain to your opponents. Like, I mean, I played a game at Admech at ITT, and the guy I played was lovely. And he was like, all right, I'm going to go through my command phase. I was like, yeah, just, you know, take me through it as you do it, and just point me to what you're doing on each unit. Because I know, you know, I've played enough games against Admech to know how they work. I have an Admech army, I know how they work as well. I know that they can just go, oh, this unit gets this, and this, and this, right, from X, Y, and Z, and from my you know, sub-faction ability, but also from this character, and also from this character, and, you know, things like that. So I think it's actually a really difficult thing to balance. I don't deny. I don't know whether GW have got it fully right, but I don't deny that it is an incredibly difficult thing to try and get right about getting thematic rules, because people want thematic rules in their codex, and in a tabletop game that is ultimately going to lead to some, you know, level of like keyword complexity, for example, and you know, the way that stratagems. Are there too many stratagems in every codex?
Yes.
Probably.
Yes.
I would say so.
There definitely are.
Are there too many relics and too many warlord traits? Again, I'd probably say so, because, you know, the joke we have among like Josh and I and our play group is we talk about the pistols all the time. When's the last time you saw somebody take a relic pistol? There's one in every codex.
Yep.
Right? No one ever takes them. Why are they in there? Just don't include them. if it's just kind of pointless, right?
Yeah.
But again, I don't know. Is that going maybe towards? Is that maybe then gearing the codexes solely towards competitive play who just want to be super efficient rather than fluffy? I don't know. It's a difficult one to balance, I think.
One of the things
let me know. Let me know. People in the comments contribute your brain power, because collective brain power is good on it.
One of the things Andrew has said here, and this is another feather in the cap of Age of Sigmar. My personal wish list is a limit on the strats a unit can receive per turn/phase. Now, in Age of Sigmar, what they do is they have command abilities, and they function somewhat like stratagems, particularly the ones in the core book at certain points in the phase, right? So, for example, in every phase, you will have a number of command abilities that you can do, spending command points on, right?
Yep.
So, for example, in the charge phase, you've got two. One that you can do in your turn, and one that your opponent can do in your turn. One is a reroll charge, the other is Overwatch.
Right.
Right? In order to do those command abilities, you have to be in range of someone who can command you to do it.
Right.
So you can't just have, for example, a unit of, let's say that this Sterling Battlemire, right? Let's say that that's a Lord Celestin, right? We'll put him there.
Yep.
And this unit of Dire Avengers are my unit of Stormcast that are going to charge this unit of Dire Avengers because they're my opponent's Stormcast. This Lord Celestin can issue these guys the command to reroll their charge. He cannot issue those guys over there to reroll the charge because he's too far away. So being able to just deploy stratagems willy-nilly all over the place, that is something that does go a long way to limiting the ability of the things, because you do have to fight more cohesively as an army in Age of Sigmar. So you have to have a knight or a lord or something like that that's nearby to be able to issue the command. Some, I think, like sergeants can do it, can issue it to themselves, but not to other people. But like generally, your general.
Generally general.
You want to be able to you need to have somebody in range to do it. I think that's something that's
good.
I think that's something that 40k could do with. There also needs to be a lot less command points in the game.
Well, I was going to say, so you know what I think is funny about that, and it's interesting you said about the general being in range, right? We had that to some extent in 40k. It's called the Necron Codex.
Yes.
Right. The whole Necron faction ability, command protocols, everyone forgets because it's compared to other codexes, it's incredibly limited because you have to have a Necron noble on the table, and they have to be in range of the unit for them to get the command protocol.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it just doesn't go off. It doesn't do anything for you, right? Now, in the context of other 40k armies, it looks crap, right? Necron players, rightly, you kind of sit there and go, well, hang on a second, we got that, and, the AdMech can broadcast their ability, army-wide, for example, things like that. It does feel a bit unfair to Necron players, but we did kind of have that. So I think, from a design philosophy point of view, the Necron Codex was kind of leaning that way. The other thing the Necron Codex did, which I think is important, is core, right? The core keyword, and this is a comment actually in chat ML, I think reducing stratagems and making keywords universal with way, and I think a good point. The core keyword is kind of a joke, right? Yeah. Because everything is core in a lot of armies. Like the Space Marine Codex has a ludicrous amount of stuff that is core. A Dreadnought, I'm sorry, right? And I have a Space Marine army. I'm not saying this because I'm like anti-Space Marines, right? Dreadnought should not be core. They just shouldn't. They're not a core part of the army. Your core is your troops, maybe a couple of the nominally elite and fast attack units, and then a couple of the HQs I guess aren't core anyway, but that should be your core, right? And that should be the same in every codex if we're going to have core keyword, right? Yeah. The problem is, again, we had that option. We had a Necron Codex that had very limited core options. We had a Space Marine Codex in which everything was core, and other codexes came out and followed the Space Marine philosophy such that later on in the game, they had to patch the Necron Codex to give a lot more stuff core, to get buffs going off on it to make it viable. And there's a video on my channel. I talked about this with Rich Watkins, Rich is in your chat, with our friend Rich Burbage, Drakia Paints on Instagram, who's a big Necron player. And obviously you've recently done the Codex and Coffee episodes of the podcast with Rich about Necrons. Check that out, by the way. And And he made this big point. He was like, yeah, this is a huge boost for us, stuff getting core, because it means so many more of our buffs and our stratagems can go off, which makes the army much more viable.
Yeah.
So it's interesting that we had that one moment where it was like, oh, is it going to go this way? And then they were like, no, yeah, the Space Marine Codex time. And, yeah, no, everything's cool. So, nah, we're going to go that direction. Just in the chat as well, I would just say, Aquila Lias in my chat, apologies if I'm mispronouncing that, says, the core rules are okay in my opinion, the amount of overlapping makes some super combo are annoying though. Having to find out how, for example, Lilith and what hit roll does what, because obviously there are like different exploding hit rolls that then do different things, is too much. And why not let someone pick 5 stratagems out before a game and only be able to use those?
Yes.
What do we think of that?
It's deck building, isn't it? It's a really good idea. Like it's one of those. It's one of those. Yes, that would be very, very nice to have that in the game. Like,
yeah,
I wholeheartedly agree with that as an idea. Like, the prevalence of. I was actually talking about this with Chris the other night. Stratagems are an interesting one. Relics are an interesting one. Warlord traits are an interesting one because like fundamentally. It all kind of it's all linked, right? So let's take Necrons as an example. The 2 relics that everybody takes,
Veil of Darkness,
and the Orb of Resurrection, or whatever it's called, the Infinity Orb.
Yeah, something like that. Whatever it's called. It picks stuff up that's core, basically, is the answer.
Yeah. So, you've got those 2 relics in your army. So, you would say that spending that CP is worth it for those 2 relics, because those 2 relics are really good. In some armies, the relics are not worth an extra CP.
Yeah.
In some armies, you don't need the CP, so you'll buy all of the relics, because the relics are really good.
Yep.
So, like, one of the things, like, in a Drukhari army, for example, taking the relic for the succubus.
The Triptych Whip.
Yeah. So, like, back when, taking the triple patrol actually gave you extra command points, rather than spending any, or, like, not refunding them, right? You're just silly if you're not spending money on the extra relics. Right? You see what I mean? It's all layered. It's all of it is all connected.
It's like ogres or onions.
It's sort of like ogres layered. Or onions, exactly. So it's a. If everyone's gonna get it, does it need to be equally powerful? Because it's not most of the time.
No, that's true.
There are some really strong options in some books, and there are some really weak options in others. Like, why would you spend like you said, why would you spend a CP to take the relic pistol when you can spend a CP to take the banner of whatever that gives everybody mortal wounds on 6s? Yeah. So you just go, I'm going to take that one each time, every time.
Well, it's also like a good example of where there have been changes in codexes, because like the Tyranids, obviously quite close to my heart, the Tyranid Codex has terrible warlord traits. Like, and its relics are not that good either, to be honest. Where they've had the massive glow up has been through the Leviathan supplement, the Octarius stuff, and the growth. It was Psychic Awakening when they first got the adaptive physiologies that you could, basically instead of taking a warlord trait, you can have one of them. So now every Tyranid army has got realistically. I mean, there are now a lot more relics that you can take in a Tyranid army. But like to take my one from ITT, I've got the Biomorphic Carapace for -1 to wound on a Hive Tyrant. I've got an adaptive physiology because I spent on the extra relic, and I've also spent the stratagem to get the adaptive physiology. So I've got him with his murderous size. He's +1 strength, +1 damage, +1 AP on a melee weapon. And I've also spent on the adaptive neural lobe on my... What was it on? It was on my... oh god, not Neurothrope, the boss Neurothrope. Wait, no, it is a Neurothrope. They're called Zernthropes. The Neurothrope, which allows me to farm CP, right, in a very CP-heavy army. So, that goes from a codex where people just wouldn't bother with most of the relics and most of the warlord traits because they were just kind of rubbish, right? Yeah. Just looking at chat for a second. So Andrew Begg in your chat says, this is read my comment about Space Marine Dreadnoughts earlier. The Space Marine may have been core before they ended up in the Dreadnought. Maybe it was part of the contract that they kept it. Yeah,
it clearly was.
They turned around and they were like, listen, I was an intercessor. Okay, I was core. You sticking me in this Dreadnought, I better be bloody core now. I better be getting my right. And then in my chat, David Liddell says, quantity of stratagems, relics, and traits all add complexity, but also should add to variance. E.g., if you could only take 5 stratagems, people would only take the best 5 every game, which would reduce skill level and make games very samey. No? So interesting debate there. And he says, I guess pistols, etc. are for narrative players. And I agree, yeah, I mean, that is the one downside. Like, as much as I'm saying, why are there so many relics? Why are there so many stratagems? Why are there, warlord traits? Well, you don't have to pick the best ones. You can play a game and go, do you know what? I've got Sister Ophelia, who's got the magic pistol of doom in my crusade games or in my narrative games, and that's how I'm going to play her. I'm never taking her to a tournament, right? Maybe I will, but I'm never taking her to a tournament and going, this is the most efficient relic ever, right? But you might want to do that. So it swings and roundabouts about how do
I've been doing.
What have you been doing?
My Keeper of Secrets, I give her I give her Silver Strike. It's a
what's Silver Strike?
It's a fancy sword that gives her 2 extra attacks. That's all it does. The competitive choice.
That's pretty cool.
But the competitive choice in the Slaanesh Demons Codex is to take the Jewel of Excess, where once per game you roll off leadership against your opponent, and if you win, that thing that you beat, so a character generally, cannot do anything. They can't fight, they can't shoot, they can't do auras, they can't psychic. That's
pretty good.
Anything in that phase, they cannot do it. That's the competitive choice. I've taken it once, and I took it to Goonhammer. Didn't use it, not once. 5 games.
Yeah. Andrew Begg says, Orc Codex lets me throw a beehive at people. Why did they bother adding any other relics? And that is an entirely fair question. One thing I would say that has come up in chat, and I think it's interesting in the context of some stuff that's happened over the last sort of 3 to 4 days in the wonderful Warhammer, especially in 40k, is this idea of, Rich says, what if you could only take certain numbers of units if you have certain other things, right? Especially characters or HQs. So he says, for example, e.g., you could only have Vanguard veteran captain with a jump pack, but that might limit you from taking a Tech Marine, which would unlock Dreadnoughts. Yeah. Or maybe some things are 0 to 1, unless you take the corresponding HQ. And the reason I say something that's been going on is because I'm sure we all saw it was on Reddit and it was on various other places. And it got me. I hold my hands up. When I first saw it, I was like, it's so hilarious that I kind of hope it's true. But there was this kind of fake data slate update thing that was knocking around that was apparently knocked up by some people on Discord. And was actually, apart from the fact on reflection, Warzone Nachman was misspelled. It was actually a very well done bit of like photoshopping or editing, whatever you call it. And one of the things it suggested was that what they were going to do to the game was go, yeah, you know what, you're not allowed to bring Legion, Trajan Valoris, the Custodian's character, or you're only allowed 0 to 1 Crisis Battlesuits, 0 to 1 Crisis Bodyguard in Tau. Now that was fake, and I don't believe in banning characters. I don't think you should ever turn around and say you cannot bring X thing to a game of matched play. I think that is a bit too far. Personally, other people may disagree. Let me know if you disagree in chat. However, I'm actually okay with the idea that for match play games, we move to some kind of modified Highlander, right? Yeah. Because as Rich Gwatkin, who is in Josh's chat right now, will tell you, Gwatkin Gaming, go and check him out by the way on Instagram. He is part of the sort of Fun and Fluff crew that help run Fun and Fluff at the London Wargaming Guild, and one of the things that they do is they do a modified Highlander for that, where basically if you don't you can take as many troops as you want, but outside of that you're 0 to 1 on everything.
Oh, there's a limit on how many of the same troop you can take based on saves.
True, that is true, based on save. That is the other modifying.
So like for example,
and there are exceptions as well for thematic armies, right? Yeah. Like Iandan can bring Wraithguard as Rich, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe Iandan armies could bring Wraithguard as their troops. Whether that will change now that this delightful tome exists is another matter. But it's that kind of thing. Now, do I think that's the way forward for 40k generally? I don't know. But maybe some sort of modified Highlander wouldn't necessarily be a bad idea.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? Like the way you build a list in Age of Sigmar is you have to fill basic requirements, right? So you have to have I think it's 2,000 points. You have to have 2 leaders. I think it's 2, 1 or 2. You have to have at least a leader and 3 battle line. I think is what it is. I'll check it in a minute. I think it is 1 leader and 3 battle line. You have to have that. There's no getting around that. You can't not do it. Now, what Age of Sigmar does do is it does do a number of things where if you take X General as your leader, they make this unit battle line. So, now that has its benefits and it also has its problems.
Dragons.
Yeah, that's a great example. Like if you take a dragon as your leader, you can take dragons as troops, which is a little bit. It is a lot. 1+ leader and 3+ battle line. Yeah, there you go. What you then also have is you do have war scrolls, war scroll battalions. I think is what they're called now. They might just be called formations. I'm not entirely certain on the verbiage here, but that's ways of organising the army that you've got. And then if you organise them in certain ways, those things will confer unto you an extra benefit in the game. Now, one of them is a bit strong, which is you gain, it's one of the sort of main ones, which I think a lot of people take, which is everything in that detachment, as it were, gets deployed at once. So it's a 1-drop. Which is a lot.
That's a bit much, isn't it? Right?
Which is a bit much. That one needs to possibly be looked at in Age of Sigmar. But I think because there's a lot less command points going on in Age of Sigmar, it makes the game a little bit better. Yeah, I think if you changed it so that like taking a battalion detachment, for example. Conferred on you 1 extra relic, and you also unlocked I don't know, some form of other benefit. I don't know if you changed it rather than being a CP reward or a CP tax, sorry.
Yeah.
Instead of starting with 12, let's say in 2,000 points you started with 6. Can you imagine how much more economical you would be with your stuff?
Well, I think you're also, like, when you talk about, build your army a certain way, you get benefits. They've kind of done a little bit of that with the Armies of Renown, and obviously those have had very varied impact on the game. So the Skitarii veteran cohort was in use for quite a while by a lot of AdMech players because Skitarii are already good and you just add buffs onto them. Obviously, Crusher Stampede is I think is great because it allows you to run Nidzilla. But like the restrictions on that are pretty real, right? You can't bring anything that's less than less than what?
Yeah, but you don't need it.
No. But what I'm saying is I'm okay with the idea that you then have to run that an army can be powerful if it fits like a certain, as you say, like you get certain benefits, but there are certain downsides, right? Like, so the Crusher Stampede is really powerful, but actually a lot of the time, like, Crusher Stampede, let's be clear, it's an incredibly good army, but a lot of it does key off Forge World being very good, right? If you don't have Hierodules, Demacarons, although people aren't running them so much, it is just not as good if you aren't running those units, right? If I took an Exocrine instead of a barbed Hierodule, right, I'd probably be able to take more units, but it would not be as good. It would be much more easily beatable by other armies, right? Having those big Forge World in there makes a massive difference. So, and actually, it's a big departure from a lot of the way people were playing Tyranids very successfully, which is crap loads of Gene Stealers, right? You can't run them. You're just not allowed to. So, I'm kind of okay with this idea, and I'm not saying Crush Stampede is in any way a good example of it, but I'm okay with the idea of them saying, look, if you build your army a certain way, if you take certain, maybe as Rich says, if you take certain HQs, you get certain units, you get access to certain stratagems, certain abilities. If you don't take them, that's it, right? You just don't lose them. And I think that would force people to be a bit more creative. And again, to be clear, I would make this all for match play. I wouldn't make this for narrative. I wouldn't make it for anything else. I'd just be like, no, this is for match play. And perhaps even more specifically, I'd say this is actually for Warzone Nachman Grand Tournament, or whatever the current Grand Tournament rulebook is.
Yeah,
just so we don't stifle people playing how they want to play, right?
Because match
play is just what you play. It's just
match play is what's in the core book. Fundamentally, it's what's in the core book. Like it's not what comes in chapter approved. It's not what comes in any of that. Match play is that. It's what comes in the core book. If you're playing stuff from Nachman, it's designed for tournament play, which forces you to play a certain way. See, Mikey's Wargaming says Drakari have a cool strat. If you have an Archon Warlord in a battalion with a Homunculus and a Succubus, you can use 1 CP to give Succubus and Homunculus a Warlord trait, which is cool. See, it is a cool stratagem, but again, every army has it. But why is the Drakari one a 1 CP? 2 guys get a Warlord trait, and the Warlord traits are really good on them. And it's the same thing in the Aeldari book. There's a 1 CP strat to give 2 Exarchs a relic.
Yeah, I'm gonna say something controversial here, Mikey. You may hate me for this, right? I think when they did the change to say you couldn't mix sub-factions, for Nachman, I would have extended that to Drakari and said your 3 patrol goes out the window. Yeah,
you have to run it as a raiding party.
Right. I would have said you have to do it as Real Space Raiders, because you have Real Space Raiders in your book.
Yeah.
That is Real Space Raiders is designed to be that. Real Space Raiders is designed to be you bring a unit of Cabal at minimum, right? A unit of Cabal, a unit of Cabalites, a unit of Racks, and a unit of Witches, and you bring a Succubus, Homunculus, and a Archon. Right? You have that detachment in your book, but for some reason they were like, oh no, Witch Cult, Cabal, and Coven are not actually sub-factions because you're all part of Drakari. So, as long as you don't run Cult of Strife and Cult of the Red Grief, you're fine. Nah, I'm sorry. I would have binned that for Drakari. I would have said, nope, you want to do it, you run a Real Space Raid. Because you still get all your benefits.
Yeah.
But, I don't know, that's me picking on Drakari, which is maybe me being a bit unfair.
Well, you know what's even worse now? You could run Real Space Raid, take a Coven,
bring a Harlequin Patrol.
Exactly. You can bring Coven, Cabal, and
we'll talk about Harlequins. We'll talk about Harlequins later, because Harlequins are a whole nother thing themselves in terms of where the 40k meta is going.
Core battalions, you Philistine. Thank you, Chris.
Mikey finds my comment highly amusing. No, Drakari are a very cool army, and I just found it weird that they have this very thematic thing that they introduced into the book for 9th edition.
8th edition? It was in 8th edition as well, pretty much.
What, the Real Space Raid?
Yeah, it was called Real Space Raid, and that as if you took a patrol of all 3.
Oh, okay, yeah. But they introduced this modified version, which is like a battalion, right? So it still gets you your 12 CP, still lets you bring all the rest of stuff. They introduced it, and then, no one takes it because you just don't have to. And I sort of feel like, if you're a Drakari player, you would take it if you had to, right? I don't know, because it's just weird that they introduced it, and it's just something that nobody ever runs because you don't need to. There is literally nothing lost by running 3 patrols.
Well, and now you can take Harlequins as well, which is a problem. It's a problem.
Yeah, I mean, Rich Watkins says if you took away 3 patrols, you couldn't do 2 Witch Cult patrols and a Cabalite patrol, for example, for better or worse. I mean, sure, I'm kind of okay with that. I mean, people don't have to, people can't do that in other armies, I guess. I don't know. No one takes it because Drazar isn't included. I mean, that's a fair point, yeah, and Drazar is very good. Also very well painted, clearly, Mikey. Did you use Warhipster's tutorial?
No, yes. I don't think he did.
Boo. No, well done. Winning your at the Twisted Dice tournament. But yeah, no, I'm sorry, I'm picking on Drakari needlessly. There are plenty of other things in the game that are much bigger issues, like Harlequins. We'll deal with that in a minute.
Let's just deal with it now.
You want to deal with it now?
Let's just deal with it now.
Yeah, so
it's pertinent to the meta. Because this is the thing, is we were talking about complexity earlier. Harlequins are about to make things so much more complex that you are not going to know what you are doing on the other side of the table. And that is quite thematic for Harlequins. It's not fun for the game.
I mean, they are a bunch of clowns, and 40k is about to become a circus. This all may be completely blown out of the water. The Tyranny Codex comes out and turns out to be ludicrous, right? But, the Harlequins. So everyone at the moment is really concerned about Tau, because Tau are broken. And I have a Tau army, I have an Eldar, I have everything, right? So my sort of like Fox News fair and balanced on this is I'm not biased, right? I'll play all of them, any of them if I have to, but Tau are busted, they just are. And they need to be fixed, and I don't think there's anyone, even top Tau players, that don't admit that. And they're probably going to get hit with the nerf bat at some point. But anyway,
points are going to come down.
Probably be yeah, they'll get a Custodes style, because the playtesters will complain that the Codex was broken, and they'll get a day 1 points reduction.
We've decided to make
if I were
broadsides pay 40 points because they're not seeing enough play.
Yeah, broadsides need more play. No, if I was GW, honestly, after that whole Custodes debacle, I would be ringing around my playtesters being like, right, tell me again how you playtested this and what you playtested it against, because apparently they're all rubbish and I'm looking at these tournament results. But anyway, that's Custodes, that's a different story. But yes, everybody is very worried about Tau, because Tau are dominating the meta and Tau are very good and very efficient. The Aeldari, I think, are going to make a splash. I think Rich Gorkin has made the point in 2 UK GTs this weekend where he made a splash but didn't win either. And Custodes and Tau won. There we go, that's proving the point. And that's true. I think the Aeldari Codex is not a straightforward codex. It is quite hard to dig into. I think there's a lot of abilities and a lot of kind of stuff you can draw out of it to really get the power out of the army, and it's going to take time for people to do that. But Harlequins, pure Harlequins, are a bigger problem than Aeldari by an absolute mile, right? Because the abilities and the power that pure Harlequins can muster is just, it's a whole nother level, right? So, should we run through in brief what Harlequins get? Do you think that's probably the best way forward, Josh?
You do it very briefly, yeah.
I'll try and keep it brief.
They get full-on plum bunder is what they get.
Yes, potentially. What I do need to do, hang on, I just need to go to a unit, because, you know, GW lays out the codex amazingly well.
This book,
so
to be fair to Games Workshop, this book is really hard to do a good layout of.
Oh, yeah. No, I'm being unfair, but, like, at the same time, it's like, oh my word. Right, page 144 is what I'm looking for.
I've got a copy of the Aeldari Codex here for Codex and Coffee, so we'll be ready when it comes.
Okay. So it's worth just thinking about the 3 abilities that they get army wide, or pretty much army wide. There's a few units that don't get all of these that are key. So Harlequin's Panoply, or Panoply, I don't know how we're pronouncing that, but Harlequin's Panoply, right? So models in this unit have a 4+ invuln save. Each time this unit makes a normal move, advances, falls back, or makes a charge move until that move is finished, models in the unit can move through models and terrain features. They cannot finish a move, obviously, on top of another model's base. Right, so you've instantly got a 4-up invuln and the ability to just move through units, right? So their old flip belt ability, they always had that. That's quite cool. And each time a melee attack is made against this unit, subtract 1 from the hit roll. So even Space Marines are now going to be hitting on 4s in combat, at least baseline, against them. They also have Rising Crescendo. Rising Crescendo means the unit is eligible to declare a charge in a turn in which it advanced.
What page
the unit
is
this eligible to shoot. This is 144, my friend. 144 of the Aeldari Codex. If you're reading along at home with us, please turn to 144 of your textbook. So Rising Crescendo, this unit is eligible to declare a charge in a turn in which it advanced. So you've got advance and charge all across the army, or in everything that has Rising Crescendo from turn 1. Drakari at least have to wait till turn 2. And the unit is eligible to shoot and declare a charge in a turn in which it fell back. So it can fall back, shoot, and charge. So you can't tie them down. And then you also have Luck of the Laughing God. Now, Luck of the Laughing God is their sort of pure, every unit in the army has the Harlequin's keyword ability. So you gain a number of luck rerolls, depending on the size of the battle you're playing. So combat, you get 1, incursion 2, strike force, so 2,000 points, you get 3, and onslaught, you get 4. And in addition, you can make a Luck of the Laughing God roll to try and increase the number of luck rerolls gained. To do so, you roll up to 6d6. If every result is unique, you gain a number of additional luck rerolls equal to the number of d6s rolled. So, if you roll, let's say, 3 dice, and you get a 1, a 2, and a 4, you get another 3 luck rerolls. Obviously, if you roll a 1, a 2, or a 1, you don't get any additional. You just get your original 3. But obviously, because every result has to be unique, you always do this with at least 1 dice. That result will always be unique because you've only rolled 1 dice. So you actually have a minimum of 4 luck reroll each battle round. And a luck reroll can be used to reroll a hit roll, wound roll, damage roll, saving throw, advance roll made for a unit from your army with the Luck of the Laughing God ability. Any luck rerolls not used by the end of the battle round are lost. And because the other thing about this that's really powerful when you think about it is this is start of battle round. It's not start of turn. So even if you go second into, let's say, Tau, who are going to be putting a lot of firepower your way, and that may not work for other things we'll get to, you have this from the start. And if you think about it, right, what you do, you don't use these rerolls for you don't use your charge rolls, you use them for your saving throws. Everything in your army is a 4-up invuln. Can you imagine how frustrating that's going to be when it's like you get a wound through, right? And again, this is, Harlequin's units can be surprisingly durable for T3 units, right? You get a wound through, your Harlequin's opponent fails to save, and then just goes, I'm just going to re-roll that, gets a 4. You've done nothing. Like, this ability is gonna, I can see, like, people getting seriously tilted on this. And that's not to say it's not very funny and very thematic to the Harlequins. It is just basically gambling, and then you get, for extra dice. But still, like, I can see people losing it.
Yeah.
So those are the abilities that, like, everyone gets. And then what you have on top of that is the Sadaths, which are like the sub-factions of the Harlequins.
Yes. Light, dark, and twilight.
So this is pages 96 and 97, reading along at home in this wonderful little evening of reading we're doing. So yeah, what they've done basically is they've taken the 6 sub-factions they had previously, so Soaring Spite, Twilight Fang, etc., etc., and they've slammed them into 3. Light, dark, and twilight, as you say. And the best thing is they've taken the best parts of all those 6 sub-factions and just made them into 3.
Yeah.
They're really, really good. So to give you a very quick overview of what these do. So the light one, their characterization idea of the ability is called Blaze of Light. Blaze of Light means that each time an attack is made against this unit with this characterization, if the attacking model is more than 12 inches away, an unmodified hit roll of 1 to 3 for that attack fails, irrespective of any abilities the weapon or the model making that attack may have. That's hit transhuman.
Yep.
That's really good.
I don't know if
you're
that
Tau,
extends
your
to
baseline
flamers. Probably doesn't, right?
Well, no, because flamers you don't make a hit roll.
Yeah, they automatically hit.
They auto hit. So flamers doesn't matter, but also it's a 12-inch one, right? There's not that many flamers that are beyond a 12-inch range.
That's true.
There's a few, but most of them are 12 inches. So that's hit transhuman, right? Hey, Liam's watching the stream. Hey, Liam. That's hit transhuman. So Tau, for example, are hitting on 4s anyway. They probably don't care, although obviously they're going to lose their marker lights, become irrelevant against light Harlequins. But Custodes, you hit on 2, do you? No, you don't. You hit on 4. Welcome to being God. How'd you feel, gold boy? And also, the other part of this ability is, each time the unit with the characterization makes a normal move or advances in your movement phase, in your following shooting phase, the unit counts as having remained stationary. So your Harlequins that are all armed with pistol weapons that normally would be pretty useless if you advance, they can shoot them all, and they can then charge. That's really good.
As Rich also
points out. That's really good.
As Rich also points out, the rerolls can be used on units in transports, which CP can't do.
Which CP can't. Exactly. The dark characterization, I won't go into Warlord traits and relics, although those are very good. The dark characterization is each time a model with the characterization is destroyed by a melee attack, if it hasn't fought, do not remove it from play. You can fight on death, right? No, so fight on death built in.
I read this one the other day, which was, I was just like, oh, grow up.
Each time a model with this characterization makes a melee attack, improve the armor penetration characteristic of that attack by 1. So there's your melee Harlequins. That's really good.
It's very funny because as a Chaos Demons player, I literally cannot, I cannot kill anything in a Harlequin's army and not lose immediately back. There's no.
I would say
the only time I can kill something in a Harlequin's army is with the psychic phase.
Yeah.
that's
Do
it.
you know what? I'm gonna build a Harlequin's army. I'm gonna bring it down to your house, and we're gonna play a game. We're gonna test this theory. I will say, sorry, just to jump back to light. I know I said I wouldn't do strats, waller traits, etc. But it's worth again pointing out how good some of these strats are. So the light strat that they get, 1 CP. It's called Capricious Reflections. Use your stratagem in your opponent's charge phase. When a light unit from your army is selected as a target charge, if that unit, so your Harlequin's unit, is not within engagement range of any enemy units, it can just make a normal move of up to 6 inches. Until the end of the phase, the unit cannot fire Overwatch or set to defend. Your opponents can then select new units for that charge. So you stick a unit there, they go, I'm going to charge that. You go, no you're not.
Yeah.
Goodbye.
It's very good. It's a problem. It's a problem, some might say. Some might even say it's egregious.
So Twilight, we'll just run through that as well. So Twilight's ability is each time a unit with the characterization fights, if it made a charge move, was charged or heroic intervention, until that fight is resolved, add 1 to the attack's characteristic. Pretty good. Each time a model with this characterization makes a pile-in or consolidation, it can move an additional 2 inches. So that's probably on paper, I guess, the weakest of the abilities, but it's still pretty good, right?
They're very good. They're very good. Just fundamentally, they're very, very good.
They do have a really good Warlord trait, though, which is each time you or your opponent spends any command points, on a 6, you get a command point back. So it's you or your opponent. And if you roll 4 or more dice for a Luck of the Laughing God roll, you gain a command point. So you just farm command points. So yeah, they're really good. So army-wide 4-up invuln, army-wide advance and charge. Again, I say in army-wide, there are exceptions to this. But pretty much. Army-wide, fall back and shoot, and charge, potentially.
Yeah.
It's really good. It's really good.
The thing that, again, it is what it is, you know. Like, it's fine. Like, it's strong. Good. I'm glad it's strong. The thing that I slightly... The thing that slightly worries me is that effectively I think Drakari had the balanced data sheets, slates and stuff to make them what at this point feels fair.
Sure.
I think, you know, like, because they're not the A tier that they were. They're still very, 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 very good, but they're not the AA tier that they were. Adding Harlequins in now, all the stuff that got pointed into Oblivion and all that stuff.
Replace it with the Harlequins Patrol.
You just replace it with the Harlequins Patrol now. And not only that, you now make the Drakari army active in all phases.
What I was going to say, one thing I would say, just to temper the oh my god about Harlequins, and just because it isn't a moan, as you said, I just think it's worth talking about, because this is, I think, what's going to come out of the Aeldari Codex. The strongest build by miles is probably going to be pure Harlequins. It is worth saying, obviously, 2 things. 1, if you take them as a patrol, you don't get your Luck of the Laughing God.
No.
Right? Because that's your pure army bonus. You do get the other stuff, but you don't get Luck of the Laughing God, so they are still very powerful. The other thing to say is about Harlequins that people do forget, the Luck of the Laughing God stuff is effectively a trade-off against the fact that Harlequins don't really have many other sorts of rerolls. They have reroll 1s to wound from a Troop Master in melee, and I think that's about it.
I think, because I think, as you know, I think very much in terms of toolbox. Like, I think of what everything's going to do, specific, specific strategies that I'm going to perform with a certain thing. You can stick a light detachment of Harlequins with Psykers in it now to a Drakari army, have them sit at the back, and, you know, where they couldn't handle with some like really good psychic powers and stuff before as well. Now they've got denies in the army. They've now got something very spicy that can lend In terms of its combat potential. You can add that.
Yeah.
Shooting potential is very good.
I think they arguably fit better in some ways with Drakari than they do with the rest of the Eldar, because they're combat focused, right? Like a unit of troops is not going to go amiss in a Drakari army that probably wants to run up and get in combat anyway.
Yes.
And Mikey's Wargaming in the comments has said, don't find having Quinn extra in. Only thing I'd take are Void Weavers. I mean, yeah, Void Weavers are very good. The Void Weaver is the heavy support tank, basically, to the extent they have tank storm with a powerful prism cannon gun.
Yeah.
But you could quite easily go, I'm going to take a patrol. I'll take a Shadow Seer, right?
2 Shadow Seers.
I'll have that. So for your psychic power, I'm going to take a unit of troop because I have to, because it's a patrol. They're still really good. And I'm going to take, a Void Weaver. Probably a Star Weaver, just to zip them around the board again with the rest of your Drakari. Or two Void Weavers, yeah. They're not that expensive. They're probably a decent bolt-on. I mean, the other thing to say as well is this is without going into all the pivotal for the various pivotal roles that are your paid upgrades for the various characters, so your Troop Masters, Death Jesters, Solitaires, and Shadow Seers. And again, the Warlord traits and the strats and relics are actually really good.
Mm-hmm.
Like for example, they've aligned all of the weapons now on the troops. So the Harlequin's Kiss, the Harlequin's Caress, I think are the 2. I can't remember what the other one is called. And there's basically now strats that give those particular ones bonuses, including Ignore Invulns, which is quite fun. So yeah, I just think the Harlequin's going to be really good. I think people are going to be teching into building for Harlequin.
So where do you think they, as in terms of the meta check-in, where do you think they sit? Where does Harlequin sit? Where do Aeldari sit? And where
right now? So I think Aeldari are probably A tier. Right, I think they have a lot of power in them. I think they're quite expensively pointed, right? Which is the balancing factor. I think the other problem that pure Aeldari lists have, and actually be interesting if Liam's still watching to get his view, because he's obviously a massive Liam Dempsey. By the way, guys, go check out Liam's channel, Liam Dempsey, and also deploymentzone.tv. The Aeldari, one thing I've seen complaints from Aeldari players is that because they've moved Dire Avengers out of the troops slot into an elite slot along with the rest of the Aspect Warriors, the Aspect Warriors are now split between like elite, fast attack, and heavy support, I guess, is where the Fire Dragons sit. Yeah, and the Dark Reapers, yeah. Because they've lost them from their troop slot, they're now basically Guardians, Storm Guardians, Corsairs, but the Corsairs don't take up detachment slots, so you can't use them to fill out a battalion. And the Guardians are quite expensive, have to be taking the minimum units of 10, even for the Storm Guardians. So I know there's been a bit of kind of hoo-ha about whether you take a battalion or whether actually you... Yeah, Rangers, I mean, I think Rangers are really good, but again, I've seen comments from people saying maybe they're not that good. But I still think, look, there is a lot of power. Like, look, I mean, seriously, there's still a really anecdotal and pointless thing. Look how thick this codex is, right? There's a lot of power in here, and there's a lot of stuff that you can dig out. So, and yeah, look, so Liam says Dire Avengers' troops would have been totally broken. And yeah, I'm inclined to agree, because Dire Avengers are really good, and they can get some really good abilities as well. So, I think the pure Aeldari, definitely A tier. I think there's a lot of power in the book to be drawn out of them. The pure Harlequins, I reckon S tier, to be honest. Like, I reckon they're up there with Tau and Custodes at the moment easily.
One thing that's very interesting, and I'm just doing a size comparison now, the Aeldari book is about the same size thickness as a Stormcast book, and there is a lot of Stormcast.
Yeah. I mean, do you know what? I thought there was a good amount of lore in here as well, and a good amount of... I mean, that's good. What happens when you compress Aeldari, Harlequins, Aziani, and Ynnari together. But I thought it was really... If you're interested in the Eldar, this is just a really good book to pick up. So Liam says Rangers... And yeah, absolutely right. Yeah, I think Rangers are really good. They're very cheap for what they do. They're probably your...
Yeah, I think...
Well, are they cheap? 65 points?
Yeah.
Yeah, for a small troop unit that can do some sniping, it's good.
The question I have, and this is something that we won't know until you see prevalence of it at tournaments, or until someone wins a major with an Aeldari list, and then you'll see it all over the place. The question I have is whether, as Mikey's Wargaming says, Quins counter Tau very well.
Yeah, they do. Yeah.
So if
Very
we
much so.
if we determine what the meta is by win rate, you'll expect to see Tau's win rate go down as the amount of Harlequins players, for example, come up. Right? That's generally what you would expect to see, which would then mean that the win rate would go up for something like Harlequins. So then that would dictate where they sit in terms of power level across the metaverse. The question you have to ask and figure out, and it's not going to go anywhere. Honestly, you're not going to see too great a seismic shift. Is does having a prevalence of Harlequins make Tau worse? No. But if you base it purely on win rate, yes. Potentially. We don't know, obviously. 100%. Void Weaver spam is going to be a thing, yes. Tau beat Harlequins this weekend at Glasshammer, and Quins beat Tau this weekend at Twisted Dice. But lost to CSM. Amazing.
So
Tau lost to CSM.
Well, do you know what? I'm gonna do a video on that. CSM list is... I love it when a Chaos Space Marine list does really... I think that's all.
Who doesn't?
Because as we all know, they're not in the best place at the
it's
moment.
It's like when Chaos Demons beat a bunch of Custodes players at the ITT. No one saw that coming.
Your Chaos Demons at ITT were the stars of dealing with Custodes. I think because Custodes players didn't know what to do with them, number one. And also, you were just like, oh, you've got fast bikes. Yeah, say hello to a crap load of Slanesh Demons coming at you.
Yeah.
Like, oh, 4-up Invent, have a bunch of attacks where I fight first every time.
Have a Be'lakor.
Have a Be'lakor, yeah. Oh, you're not shooting the Be'lakor? Okay, Be'lakor's... but what I would say, sorry, Liam just says in my chat, I kind of think pure Eldari sit between A and S tier. In the right hands, though, they will be insane. I completely agree. I think we have not seen the absolute top players fine-tuning, because there hasn't really been, like, since come out, there hasn't really been a, like... And when I say the top players, let's be fair, we're probably talking about, like... What?
Me, obviously.
Art of War in the US. Yeah, you and I, clearly the top players. No, but like Art of War. I know Stephen Box won an RTT this weekend. Jake from VT is still in my chat or in yours, indeed. What he can confirm with that. But I think Steve Box won like one of the regular Factorum Open, his Harlequins. So again, once we get the people who are like used to playing Harlequins, used to playing the Eldar, the real experts, get hold of this codex and really dig through it, there's going to be some really high quality builds coming out of it, I think.
It's just things like I think you can, like we're saying at the top of the stream, if you've got the Aeldari book in front of you and you're looking at the points and you think the points are quite heavy and you're thinking this, that, and the other, then yeah, sure, they are. If you running 30 fire dragons is not a viable option. It's not.
Don't do it, guys. Don't run 30 fire dragons. I don't care how many Falcon drop pods you have. Don't run 30 fire dragons. It's a bad idea.
But ultimately, the best way to run it is to take one thing of fire dragons, give them the Exarch power that lets them automatically hit within 9 inches, and put them in a Falcon drop pod. And so
you keep bringing up that Exarch power. I feel like it's playing at the back of your mind. The power of it.
It's somewhat a problem because I think there's a way to make it so they auto wound as well.
Oh, so I was going to say, Liam says that the result for our friend was at Entoyment, and he says, does an RTT really count though? I don't know, does it? But I think I'm just saying that's a good example of like the list doing well. So well done, Steve, and you leave him alone. Leave him alone. He's doing it.
So, like...
Also, I just want to say, if we are just throwing shade, if tactical people in here, I just want to point out that Team Warclave, of which myself and Mr. Warhipster are storied members, did perform better than all of the Vanguard Tactics teams at the International Team Tournament. So we will be launching a coaching service fairly... No, I'm kidding.
Rich Gotkin does point out that I'm one of the top Demons players in the UK. I think that the reason why that is the case is because there's only me and like 7 other people using them at tournaments. But
seven's a bit generous. Let's be clear, Josh. It's you. It's a man, Stephen Williamson, who lives as a hermit on a knees, and a gerbil named Jeff. These are the 3 demon players in the UK, and you are at the top of them.
Yeah, that's exactly right. No, I genuinely there is a horribly it's a tool like Aeldari is a toolbox army. And it's the way it should
definitely
be. And the days of being able to run, for example, 3 Crimson Hunters and 2 what were they called? Hemlock Wraith Fighters.
Oh, Hemlock Wraith Fighters. I've got
Yeah.
one sitting up there on the shelf.
Yeah. So
He's
still
fun.
still doing that. Those days are very much dead because you can only take 2 planes. But the idea that that this book isn't very good is the same reaction that people had to Custodes, and Custodes are a problem right now because of the points, right? But this is a toolbox army, and if you can figure out when and where to drop the things,
absolutely,
you know. It's like if you're gonna run, for example, I've got 25 Dire Avengers on the screen right now. If you take them and Asurman, you've got a pretty good, pretty strong Vanguard detachment right there. Just because he can make all of these objectives secured, and you can make one of them worth 20 models.
Yeah, I mean, Liam says he hasn't busted out the Quins yet. I'm worried to use them. I want to see them. Get them on the channel. Let's see what they can do. Preferably, don't victimize. I say preferably, don't victimize VT Jake though when you have him. You're not allowed to victimize him. He's our special little friend, and we are not allowed to victimize. Do sod it. Just take him against him. Why not? See what
At some point,
but
Liam,
no, I think
if you want to unleash your Harlequins and make it so that they they fight on death, and you want to fight my entirely combat and 0 shooting Chaos Demons army, so that it is mutual destruction every single time anything happens. Just shoot me a message and let me know, because I think that would be really fun to watch my entire army discorporate at the same time as yours in turn 2.
I would like to see that. I would like to see that, and yeah, we need. I was going to say we do need to have a chat about upcoming event attendance, Josh, after this stream, and so we do need to have that. But no, what I was going to say is I think you're absolutely right. I think the Aeldari is definitely a toolbox codex. I think there's a lot of power in it, and it's going to take... It's probably got quite a high skill ceiling. And for the people to get the best out of it and know when to sort of drop stuff at the right time, it's just going to take a bit of time to come through the meta. I don't think we will see a change immediately. Also, obviously, if they make changes to town Custodes, we will just see, I think, a bigger impact as well, because if GW just decide to turn around and go, oh, actually, we are going to put the points back up on Custodes, or we are going to make air bursting fragmentation cost 15 points if you take 2 of them or something, that is going to start to make a change. I think the interesting going to be, and Mikey says about Aeldari ignore line of sight shooting with night spinners and support platforms will be used a lot. Yeah, I think that's going to be interesting if we see a lot more of the Aeldari reliance ignore line of sight.
Yeah,
maybe not the best. I mean, I get moaned at enough when I bring Hive Guard, right? And everyone knows how abusive they are. Spoiler, that's probably not going to hang around, or at least, it's not really a spoiler, it's just guesswork, but I'm pretty sure that's probably going to change come the new codex. But yeah, there's a lot of power in this, and I think people were really down on it initially. Maybe not to the degree of the Custodes Codex, but like, unnecessarily. And we should do, because it is coming up for 10 o'clock, so I won't go into it, but like, there's a whole nother... there's like a whole nother topic to be had talking about upcoming codexes and like thinking about them. Wraith Knights? You're just saying Wraith Knights? What's that?
I just suddenly thought to myself, are Wraith Knights any good? And I'm looking at them. I like
Wraith Knights are good.
I like Wraith Knights.
Yeah, but I think I have a Wraith Knight. I can bring a Wraith Knight along if you'd like me to.
I like Wraith Knights.
Would that please you?
I was merely interested just to see what they're working with now. I really like the Titanic Ghost Glaive.
Yeah, I mean, Wraith Knights are very good. I did see, actually, I was going to say, Liam has a battle report on his channel, Liam Dempsey, go and check it out. There is actually a battle report where you can watch him use Wraith Knight from fairly recently using the new rules. I don't think it does quite as well as perhaps intended, just because what happens in the game, but worth checking out for sure, because it's a fun game, and I like watching them play Warhammer, so and you get to see a Wraith Knight. Just 2 things as I think what are we planning to go on to 10:30 or 10, Josh? What's our plan?
10.
Are we gonna 10. Cool. So yeah,
You
so
have
we are
9
heading towards the end.
minutes.
So 2 things. So 9 minutes. So I'll bust through some quick things. So first of all, what I was going to say is thinking we'll do another episode on this, and maybe we can make the next Sunday show. Do let us know in the comments in the chat if you'd like this to be a topic at least of discussion, because one of the things that's really been annoying me this week is people getting upset about codexes based on barely very limited information. I'm in the Tyranid Discord. The Tyranid Codex is on the way. We all know it is, and there have been various things that are revealed by GW and also things that have been appearing on certain parts of the internet, and I have seen a lot of complaining about some of the changes that seem to be being made in this codex, when as I look at it, it all looks really good, right? And a lot of the complaining is points based, again, much like people had with the Aeldari Codex. So yeah, we'll talk about that another time, but yeah, that's my big bugbears at the moment. I'm like, guys, can we not pretend the sky is falling in and at least seen the codex? Because I've seen a lot of people being like, oh, this thing I have won't be viable, this thing I have won't be viable. And it's like, yeah, a lot of people said that about the Custodes Codex and there before the points drops, right? The points drops were like a little sprinkling. That was the Salt Bay, you know, the guy with the steak, the annoying overpriced steak man. That was the Salt Bay sprinkling some extra deliciousness on your codex. The codex itself still really good. And also in the chat, I will say, the OD cast in my chat says, and this is a question perhaps for you, Josh, do you think that demons will have an antidote to the increase in ignores invert weapons? I hear there is more of that to come. My demons are enjoying those at the moment. I understand that.
I don't know what the Demons Codex is going to do, but I have my ideas about what I would like it to do. So, I think, like, if we're gonna go down the routes of, I'm gonna read Andrew's comment in a minute. I'm just gonna wax.
Yes, lyrical. Yeah.
So I think there's a number of things that can happen here with demons that would be really cool and very, very thematic. I think what they need to do is you need to take Bellacor's Locus and just make that an army-wide faction ability. Right? -1 to hit from range. And it should be, you can't re-roll to hit against them from range. From range only. In combat, however, it should be easier to kill them in combat, but it's also easier for them to kill you in combat. And the reason for this is because every time demons appear in the 55 Horus Heresy books, every time the demons appear, they're like, these small ones die really easily, but like this red one with a flaming sword, I've shot it 300 times, brother, and it won't go down. Oh, if you stick it with a pokey stick, it dies. Okay, we must kill them in the old ways. And they always do that all the time. It's like the things that the demons are always weak to are knives, swords, axes, hammers. That's what kills them, right? So that's what I think that they should have. In terms of the getting rid of the invuln thing, I don't know. There are certain things that you could argue could have something along the lines of like rend doesn't affect them. That might be one way that you do it. You just get rid of the invuln thing and just like AP doesn't affect them. Like certain models, like certain things. Because, you know, there's all that thing of they get cut or they get shot and the wounds stitch back together. It's that kind of thing. It's all those. Well, you could
do a Gaz or a Catan style mechanic on your big demons that they can only take a certain number of wounds a phase.
I wouldn't do that. Maybe. I suspect like that those. I think. I mean, you know, this would be.
You think that's a bit much?
I think that's a bit much. But like, I think if you. It's a bit strong. If they gave if you got rid of Exalted as an option, and you basically gave them nearly all of the traits that you get from Exalted on the datasheet, but you limited them to 1 per detachment, and you bumped the points up massively. Like some of them, like Bloodthirsters should be scary. If you gave a Bloodthirster...
Oh, yeah, Bloodthirster should be scary, and they're not at the moment.
If you gave them every single one of the Exalted traits that are available, they would be really scary. And they're 250 points. But you can't. You can only give them... Choose 1 or roll randomly for 2. Now, if you could give them all and still have 3... Well, you can run 9 Bloodthirsters, technically, because you've got the Insensate Rage, the Wrath of Khorne, and the Unfettered Fury. But... You know, you're not going to run 9 Bloodthirsters, but Bloodthirsters should be really scary. As it stands, they're not. Keepers of Secrets are very good. they're not game breaking though. Lords of Change, that probably needs to change a little bit because of the 3+ invulnerable slave and the
get rid of the impossible robe.
That one needs to go.
Let's not have that.
The Great Unclean One, he only feels like a Great Unclean One when he's got a 4+ Disgustingly Resilient. But I suspect Disgustingly... That's one of the things I'm very interested to see is what happens to Nurgle Demons.
To Disgustingly Resilient, yeah.
Yeah, because if they keep the 5+ thingy, then a lot of, I think, Death Guard fans will be a bit annoyed.
I mean, I don't know. I like the idea that they're different, right? They just have a different ability.
Well, yeah,
but
they're
not full-on demons. They don't keep the full.
Yeah, no, for sure. But like, if demons still keep it, you know that Death Guard, because like one of the reasons to get rid of it is to cut down on the amount of rolling, which makes sense.
Yeah.
But reducing damage to 1 on 1 wound plague bearers would be entirely pointless.
Maybe they'll get a 4 mini transhuman or transhuman. I mean, this is bear in mind again, to the Eldari, but this is the first book where we've had transhuman to hit.
Yeah.
Right? Maybe something like that, right? Maybe that'll become a design trend. Right?
Oh, imagine if Nurgle demons can only be hit on the 4 and can only be wounded on a 4.
Oof, spicy.
Imagine that. But like, yeah, no, there's tons of stuff you can do with Chaos Demons. I'm very excited to see what it will be because I think the amount of thematic stuff that you've seen in all of the codexes, even like I know we talk about Aeldari Codex a lot tonight and how, you know, the Harlequins are very strong. It's all very, very, very thematic, you know.
It is.
Same thing with the Tau. The Tau are very, very thematic, and one of the things that I find very funny about how great Tau are now is Tau now feel like they always should have done, and of course it's
mobile.
Powerful.
Yeah, mobile, powerful shooting. They're not castling, at least. That's a bonus.
Yeah.
And we also don't get, you know, what is it, 3 Riptides and about 80 shield drones anymore.
Yeah. Custodes, they feel very, very thematic as well.
Yeah.
They should be hard to overcome.
Again, it goes back to what we were talking about at the beginning. You know, there is room for codexes to be thematic and powerful. You know, there's no reason, and that's probably what we want, right, in the game. It's just making that balance a bit more.
Yeah.
Is the ever ongoing task of Games Workshop. I think we should, just before we finish, read out Andrew's a couple of comments in the chat. So I will just say, before we do Andrew's one, I like the idea of Quins in Yunari detachments. Now, I've not thought about that, but that's probably a decent bet as well, because Yunari obviously have this sort of, like, you know, they're quite combat oriented, so I can see that working. Again, Liam, get it on your channel, do some list theory crafting. I'd love to see it. And then, yeah, Andrew says, this is going back to the point about me moaning about people moaning about codexes on incomplete information. He says, you've got to remember, GW actively hates your army and is out to get it. Any changes that are not straight buffs are made out of spite towards you, personally. And Rich Grotkin adds this and says, don't forget to complain when you do get buffs, because someone else probably got more buffs.
Yes.
Don't be like that. Don't do that. These guys aren't like that. Happy people aren't like that.
One of my...
Let's be positive. Let's be positive in our hobby.
I'll just... one of my favourite things that happened at the International Team Tournament was I played 5 9th edition codexes. I played Custodes, Admech, Thousand Sons, Custodes. And I'm not going to say who, but in 2 of the 5 games, one of them was a joke. So in 3 of the 5 games, and one of them was definitely a joke, because I was making a joke about it happening, but in 2 of the 5 games, my opponent very seriously looked at me and said, oh, that's a bit strong.
That's like a trigger for me, that phrase.
And I was like, oh, is it?
Is it?
Yeah. I said, have you got any, like advance and charge or anything? I was like, yeah, all the Slanesh demons do. Oh, okay. And Bellicor, because he's in the Slanesh demons detachment, has it as well. They went, oh, that's a bit strong. And I went, you sure? Are you sure?
You sure? You sure about that, buddy? Yeah, no, I think that's a fair question. So it is now 10 o'clock on a Sunday night, unfortunately a school night, and we do try and Sunday show a nice run in and before having to face the hellish nightmare that is the work week. But I think we should just leave it on a couple of positive notes, saying Mason King in your chat, Josh, says #1 fave painting. Just saying. I agree. It's my number one fave painting channel. I love Josh's
Hashtag
stuff. That's why I
Mason
asked.
King for #1 fan. I love you. Thank
Number
you.
one
That's
fan.
very kind of you.
We'll get you a mug. We'll start doing branded mugs with like #1. And Philip Eagle says, "I just squats back, please." Well, who knows? Who knows? There are rumours flying around. Who knows what GW will pull out of their magical bag of stuff in Lenten? That metaphor didn't go anywhere, did it? Their magical sack.
I bet you'll
but look,
definitely see a squats kill team in one of the kill team zones, and they'll judge it based on that.
That'd be cool. That'd be cool.
Like,
but look,
yeah.
yeah. No, I was gonna say, thank you very much for joining us. Whether you joined on my channel or on Josh's channel, thank you for joining us. We love doing the Sunday show. We're going to keep doing it. Have ideas for things that you would like us to talk about? Oh, I will say next Sunday show probably won't happen because, well, actually no, I'll have my computer with me, but I'll be in Norway. So you'll get a broadcast from Norway potentially, but we'll see. We'll see what's happening on that on next week. But if you do have stuff you want to talk about, if you do have topics you want us to chat about, anything, 40k, AOS, frankly any of the other games, not that we necessarily play them, let us know. Let us know in the chat, and these go up on YouTube. And apologies for my technical issues at the very start of this stream, like every single week. I will get this streaming thing right eventually. Josh is a lot better at it and a lot at it than I am.
Cool. Copy and paste, my friend. Copy and paste.
Copy and paste, yeah. But we should just say thank you for joining us again. Wonderful week, and good night.
Yes. Good night. And I will see you all next time. Have a good one, everybody. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.